screen. Just want to make sure we're good to go before I get started here. You guys can see the screen, correct? Correct. And feel free to unmute chat. This isn't like everybody be quiet and just listen to me, please. Um, just feel free. Okay, let me start the event so people know it's here in case they didn't see it in the chat. There we go. All right. So just want to break down why I've been kind of throwing pivot points out the last couple days and like how it feels like out of nowhere, so on and so forth. So here's the thing, guys. For everybody that's been around for a long time, Justin, Arsenic, Aunt Steve, E-Trades, with trading, the why is really important. And what that means is I don't want to, like with fibs, I don't want to show you guys fibs and you're like, yeah, I could draw it out, but you have no clue why it's important. You don't know how to kind of identify it without even having to draw it. You don't understand the point of it. You don't understand what it's all about. You don't understand what causes these levels to be important. You don't understand why I switch my 0.238 to a 0.25, or I don't use the 0.386 and the 782, all those things. I'm proud to say that everybody who actually likes the fibs and has used the fibs can answer every single one of those questions. Amy, why don't you use the 6-1? Why don't you use the 0.238? Why do you switch it to 0.25? You guys all know it's because 0.25 is a dead cat bounce zone, that we're looking for that as like a bull, as to get away from a bull trap or a bear trap. It's the trap spot. You guys know the 0.5 is the most important level in all the market, and that it's technically not even really a fibs level, but it's very important to me. You know the fibs in general, the 618 is the catch-all of the 0.5, and you also know that the 618 is really the only fibs I give a shit about, that it's more standard deviation and measured moves than actual fibs. And then we moved on to, whoever's watched it, to the extensions and the difference between retrace and extensions, and why we don't want to just put extra levels on our retrace and call an extension, and how we get the extensions. And if anyone's not familiar, I showed a video like what the extension is. It's the same, it's a measured move of the previous move, those type of things. But the people who are using fibs really understand the fibs and have seen it in action, buy it, say holy shit, like this actually works. This legitimately, when you do it right, works well. You guys know I don't like fibs in a super tight zone. I don't like fibs if it's super choppy. So like, why would I start introducing super complex things, one on top of another on top of another? It's going to be too much information, and then it turns into a self-fulfilling prophecy of jumping from thing to thing, finding whatever fits your plan to back whether you're bullish or bearish. So I'm very, very small bites, and I really want you guys to fully and completely understand one thing before the next. So with me, going back to Skills Lab 1 and Skills Lab 2, stacking probabilities, high probability setups, and then pivot points, confluence, and what I need for that. You know what I mean? So E-Trades, you ain't listening to me. I'm almost offended. You got that not listen on. I'm going to have to call him out. He's probably doing something. So, why would I introduce a whole new concept before you really can grasp the previous concept? Like, everybody wants it all the time, this and that, but it's too much information, because remember, in trading in general, 80% of it is mental anyway. And then the other 20% is what? Numbers and probability. Numbers and probability. That's it. Numbers and probability. What are the candles? What are these candles? These candles aren't here for the algos and for the actual buys and sells. These are a visual representation of a statistical and mathematical probability. That's all it is. That's all it is. So, like, I feel like there's a good grasp on fibs at this point. I think most people have a very, very good grasp on fibs. I'm like, okay, I can move on from that. And I've started to dip into the extensions. Of course, we'll do more on that. We'll get into fib circles. We'll do it all, guys. But we're not going to do it quickly, period. Because it does more harm than good when you are exposed to super technical, in-depth type of stock trading, components without really understanding them, without really understanding yourself, understanding risk reward, so on and so forth. Like the slower the better. Like for me, it is the slower the better, because as much as it's the same thing as I talk about, if you're not a profitable trader, why are you jumping from A, Discord to Discord, or B, from type of trading to type of trading? One day it's blue lines, next day it's fibs, this, that, the other. You need to really give it a long time. I see KT likes the 386. He likes to put it on the chart. That's fantastic. I want every single person who starts to use the fibs to adjust it for them. Like you notice, like if you go out on the X, no one uses the same fibs as me. No one. No one has that specific fib set up. Arsenic used to like the 705 catch basket, and he likes to do, fibs in different ways. He likes to do micro fibs where it might be 8 minutes of range, and cross-reference fibs. That's fantastic. I want everybody to take that and run with it, and that's really why it is snail's pace with this stuff. We're not in a hurry. We don't need to do this in one day. So, when you fully understand something, it's time to add the next thing on. So pivot points. That's the next thing I really kind of wanted to hit, because you're going to need to understand fully pivot points before we get to standard deviations. So it's like that half step. The only reason that does fibs similarly, like I was his mentor. Bitcoin Jay is my protege, Latavian, and he'll tell you that. He's my protege. Like, that's one person. I would say my second protege, my honeycomb protege, sorry to everybody else, but it really is Arsenic, because he's the one that really is trying to dig into the math of the market. But like Bitcoin Jay is my protege. I'm so damn proud of him. Jay is amazing. Talk to him still all the time. I'm going to bring him in here, and he's going to do a crypto or a technical trading workshop at some point. We just are so busy, and we're both the same type of trader where we're kind of flighty and all over the place. So it's hard to really, really get that time to sit still. It's a kind of little ADHD. So anyway, like pivot points is like the midpoint between fibs and standard deviations, because standard deviations can be a little complex, and I really want like segmented supports. All right, because when we have a range like today, I probably shouldn't have deleted today's fibs or today's pivots, because it was a pretty amazing display of. I'm gonna pull that over here actually, because it was a perfect display of how amazing pivots can actually be. Here, let me make it bigger. This is today's chart with our pivot points, our zones. And it was kind of cool because I've just started to introduce pivots, and I wasn't planning on doing the class. I'm a little chatty. I got nothing going on, so I figured I'll do it right now. So this is day 2 of pivot points. And we have had 2 days of hitting every single zone on the pivot points. And like we say, gee, it's almost like fibs work. I gave all these levels at midnight last night, including the November pivot point. And I mean, when you talk about, it's literally the whole range, and almost perfect. The November pivot point is a wick above it, and we bounced perfectly off of the second support pivot. So, it's just a good way to combine several different things, several different components in trading, because standard deviations is what's the last boss tomorrow? Bowser. Like level 9 Bowser. If you're old school Nintendo, you haven't shut off your Nintendo in 5 days because you cannot beat that last level. It's like Bowser. Standard deviations is Bowser. And off of standard deviations, I guess you could say Wave is a little bit You know, but I'm more looking at like the patterns, the wave patterns, things like bats and, you know, the bat and the butterfly, you know, and those type of things. You know, those are really more so uh, some parts that I will get to eventually. So with the pivot points, it's another representation of the numbers and where the volume is really, and just the ranges and a measured move. It's a little bit of standard deviation, a little bit of fibs. There's two types of pivot points. There's fib pivot points, and there's just the regular traditional pivot points. All right. So this is your pivots, and I'm only doing two. We really don't, when we have a range the way we've had today, you can add more, and I will add the third formula onto this. But I'm doing, you know, two extensions out for now. There's different, and fibs or pivot points, just like fibs. What's your primary purpose? You can really put it on any time frame that you'd like. So you can do it on a 4 hour but remember, you know, the shorter the time frame, what is going on here? It's like frozen. All right, here we go. The shorter time frame, the less substantial and less strength it's going to have. So we want to remember that. All right, here we go. So these are your pivot point formulas. They're really very, very simple. And I want you to understand the formulas before I give you a good indicator that does them automatically. I want you to understand where they come from, what the pivot points are. Okay? So anyone that says pivot point that isn't using this formula, that's not a pivot point. Pivot points is an actual formula to get that pivot. Oh, this is hold on, that's the fibs pivots. Let me get the standard pivots. Sorry, guys. Here we go. This is the one we want. All right, here we go. So all your pivot point is, all right, is for the daily. Your daily pivot point, you add your high, your low, and your close and divide it by 3. Okay, so today's pivot point on today's chart to use for tomorrow is 668.18. It changes every day. Your daily pivot is going to change every single day. And then variations of that formula is going to give you your extensions. These are an offset, simplified standard deviation here. Okay? So when we add up, all right, so I already told you this, so I shouldn't have told you it. But so when we add our high of 675.56, our low of 651.89, and our close, which was 652.53, and we divide it by 3, we get 668.18 pivot. All right, so we get our supports past that. So our pivot point for today is 668.18. And someone who's sitting by their phone, their calculator, whatever it might be, 668.18 is our pivot. Someone tell me what our support 1 is. So our first support is going to be your pivot times 2 minus the high a day. So someone give me that. I'm not going to do all the math too. This is very simple math. So that's going to be support 1. And then there, of course, there's support 2. And there's resistance 1 and resistance 2. So you're going to take your 661.18 is your pivot point. So for support 1, okay, put in, times it by 2, and subtract our high a day, which is 675.56. What does that guy give you? That's going to be our first level of support for the day. And yes, there is, I'm going to show you an indicator that gives you it, but I'm not going to do that until you guys prove that you're able to do this. So just someone do that. It's super simple. Times it by 2 and divide minus the high. You got to put brackets on it. 660. You got it 660.80. Let's see if that's right. Let's do it. You got 660.80. That was the first person. All right. So scientific calculator, bracket. All right. Support 1 is pivot times 2. And our pivot is 668.18. Close the bracket. And then we subtract our high a day, which is 675.56. 660.80. Who said that? TG? Yeah. DM me TG, $50 Amazon gift card. Give me your email. All right. So we've got 660.80. All right. So we're going to put a line there at 660.80. That's going to be our first support for tomorrow. And now, because we had an insane wide range today, we're going to have wide pivots. Like, for us to go through all of the range today is insane. All right, here we go. All right, so there's our support one. And then we've got support 2, we've got resistance 1, and we've got resistance 2. All right, so support 2. And this is for tomorrow, guys, remember. So our support 2 is going to be our pivot minus high minus low in the bracket. So our pivot is, so it's going to be 660.80. All right, I'm going to do this. I'm not going to hit equal, but 660.80 is our pivot. All right. So support 2. Oh, shit. Where'd my calculator go? So 660.80 minus high minus low. So 675 minus low is 651.89. Close your bracket. And no one else is doing math but him. So 637.13 does not seem right. Did I do this right? 660.80. Yep. No, that's our support. That's not our pivot. What did I do here? Sorry, guys. $668.18. I'm such an idiot. Sorry, guys. I'm doing this on my calculator on my phone. I can't click this. This is insane. It's taking forever. All right. So support 2 is pivot, which is 668.18 minus sorry, I'm doing it on my phone, guys. And then in the bracket, that's very important, 675.56 minus our low, which was 651.89. Close the bracket, equals. All right, 668.18 minus bracket of 675.56 minus 651.89. So our support 2 is going to be 644.51, which I already did here. I already wrote it in. Why is there some, I did something, hold on. Support 1, pivot times 2 minus high. Why is it showing a support above where we closed? 1 second, guys. Is our pivot point wrong here? So high 675.56 plus low is 651.89 plus close is, sorry, it can be monotonous because it is all math. So 652.53 equals, divided by 3, 659.99. Wow, okay, that's what the problem is. Pivot is wrong. Sorry, our pivot is 659.99, so almost 660 exactly. I don't know. Maybe that was today's pivot. All right, so I'm just going to double check this. I'm sorry, guys. I don't know why that pivot was wrong here. I don't know what the hell. 6 675.56, 651.89. And there is an app that does this. There is, do not worry. You're not going to have to do this every day. I just want you to understand how to do this. That's it. And then our close, 652.53. Now I'm double checking my work because I got it wrong for some reason. Sorry guys, it's chaos here. 651. 1 second. God, I even had to do this math. I've had it automatic forever, so.
You didn't let them out, did you?
No, I did not. One sec. Sorry. Chaos here at my house. Give me 1 sec, guys. All right, I'm back. Yeah, 659.99. So let's fix that. 659.99. This is going to be wrong too because of that. I don't know where that number came from. All right, there's our pivot. And S2, I think, is right. So support, okay, so now our support is going to be down here somewhere, okay? So now let's do that support again. I'm so sorry, guys. And we're going to go from here. So support 1 is our pivot times 2, which is 651.99. And then we subtract our high, 675.56. All right, 628.42. That's more like it. And then support 2. Sorry, I'm just doing all the math. You guys could follow along and do it yourselves. Because no one else seems to want to do it. And it's a mass zone because it's been super volatile. So there's our support 1. Look at you, Aunt Steve. I love you. Now, what is going on? Is my calculator acting like a crazy person? I'm using my stupid phone calculator. Here, I'll just pull it up on here. What is going? Sorry, I got so distracted. My husband got out of the shower. The dog's freaked out. That's why I don't do night streams, because it's chaos in my house. Support 1 is pivot point times 2, 651.99. That's 1303.98 minus our high, which is 675.56. 628.42. What am I doing wrong? What is going on here? Our high of day is 675.56, right? 675.56. Is it the calculator? Pivot times 2. Let me do the the brackets. Maybe that's why. $651.99 times. Oh my God, this calculator! I'm gonna lose my mind. Sorry, guys. This is fun. $675. I can't slide that. It goes away. $675.56. $628.42. What's going on with my math? Why do we have different numbers? My PP is wrong. It's $659.99. Oh my God, I typed it wrong. Thank you. Thank you, guys. There we go. Aunt Steve, I'm giving you another damn gift card too. Both of you. Thank you. I typed it in wrong. All right, I'm going to take yours. I was like losing my mind here. All right, support one, $644.53. I trust your math. It's simple math. I was losing my mind. I'm like, how is this not making sense to me? I'm so sorry. Support one, support two, $636.32. Thank you. It was a typo. All right. And then on the, so basically, as you could see here, you're subtracting your highs on the equation. And then down here, you're subtracting your low on the equation. And up here on the supports, you're doing the pivot point minus, and here you're doing the pivot point plus. So that's pretty much the main difference in this. Let me do these other couple pivots, and then I'll give you the formula I like, or the indicator I like for it, because I'm sure these are right. So resistance 1, 668.10. Do you hear these dogs? That's why I shouldn't have done this at night. Okay. Oh. All right, so we got 668.10 and 683.66. I should have just done all this first. What is going on? All right, anyway, fuck it. That's the formulas. I'm deleting all these because I'm going to show you the indicator, and then we're going to do weeklies and monthlies because those matter as well. All right, so the indicator I like that seems to be pretty spot on and gives it correct is this one right here. I like this one. This is for yesterday's levels. So it's not updated yet. And if we look at yesterday's, if you go on X, I posted them yesterday. Here. So just to show you they are correct, here's yesterday's off my post. So they are correct here. I like this one. It's called Daily Pivot Plus R1, S1, R2, S2 with prices. That's what it is. It's right here. Unfortunately, it doesn't give us the option of changing the colors, which I don't love. But this is the only one that has these four with the prices and the labels. So it's called Daily Pivot R1, S1, R2, S2. I'm guessing it updates overnight. I'm so sorry about that little glitch when I was doing all that. I was distracted and trying to do math at the same time while these dogs were acting like assholes. So these levels, very important. As you can see, these were today's, and they pretty much covered today's entire range. And so that's just something in general, that these pivot points are a deviation of standard deviation. So that's very important as well. And then it's really pretty much the same formula for your primary purpose. The daily levels are great for day trading. For swing trading, Monthlies are substantial. I showed you the monthly here. No, the November pivot, which is 674.30. Can anyone tell me how you think we get the monthly pivots? Has anyone cheated ahead and looked? 674.10. Let me add that on here. All right, there we go. So the monthly, yeah, you use the previous month high, low, and close. Exactly. So you could do monthly, you could do weekly, and you can even have, there is some indicators that you can do hourly pivots, 4-hour pivots, whatever you want to do. For me specifically, the monthly, sometimes the weekly in a high volatility range, like last week. And just for shits and giggles, let's do last week's pivot. Let me put on the weekly here, and then last week's pivot points. Let's see, and then flip it to the daily, and let's see if those played out. I have not checked it all, so let's just do the last week's pivot. And then we will check that. All right. So last week was high of 684.96. And then we had low of 663.27. And then we had our close. Last week's close was 671.93. So 2016 divided by 3, 673.39. So last week's pivot was 673.39. Let's switch that here. And there is calculators to do it yourself as well. You could plug the values in and they'll do it yourself, this and that. So if that's our weekly pivot and we put on the daily chart or even the 4-hour, and let's see, that's 673.39. If you look, because it was last week. So remember, that ended Friday, which was right here. If you look, that was also our exact resistance on Monday and overnight. Like we tried to pop above it and couldn't. These pivot points are quite important in general, especially the daily pivot. And then the deviations from it are great. I don't want to do all the math of the weekly, but I'm willing to bet the weekly and the monthly pivots end up being incredibly important. What I suggest doing is having a separate SPY chart or a separate script where you have a separate SPY chart where you keep the weekly and the monthlies on there. And then you go back and you cross-reference it for your purposes of just seeing if those levels are one that play out or not, because they are very important. And the main reason I'm teaching pivot points is because next is standard deviations, and that's the shit. That's what we really want to get in. That's the, literally the price and time comparison that is the most important thing in trading, in my opinion, because everything is measured moves, everything. Like if we go back and we think about fib extensions, how it's just the same measured move in a different time period from the pullback, and how that all ties together, and everything's a measured move. Everything's about midpoints, so we really do want to get into that. So thank you, guys. Thank you, though, for telling me I mistyped that. I was losing my mind. I felt like a fucking idiot. I'm trying to teach you guys something, and I'm not even able to do it correctly. TG, if you want to make me a custom indicator, reach out to me. Let's make one. Because I would love to do one with that. And then we add on an automatic, I'm trying to think what else we would want to put on that, because I was going to build out but I just simply do not have time. There's also ones where it's a line that'll switch daily. It's pretty nice, but this one for now, just to get you guys started to cross-reference, this will be updated overnight, and we'll go and you can go from there and really kind of, play with it the way you want to. That PP can be very, very important. So our pivot point. So there is also Fibonacci pivot points, okay? But one of the two Fibonacci pivot points is literally the 382, which I do not use. But you don't even have to necessarily do the math on that, because all the Fibonacci pivot point it's the 618 and the 382. And you can just draw from the S2 up to the pivot point, the actual pivot. And the 618 is going to line up with this 618. And I will do one quick math example just to show you guys. But you can absolutely plot your 618 on your pivot points as well. And this is the formula for that pivot, for the resistance pivot. And it's the opposite for support. You pull back to that 618, but here's the formula for that. I'll just copy the box here. But here's the Fibonacci pivots, and the 618 one is nice. It's basically plotting the fibs on the pivot points instead of the actual structure of the candles. And, so the resistance 2, so your pivot's going to be, if we're doing the pivot for yesterday, okay, let me put this back to the daily, because the lines we have up are yesterday's lines, which is this right here. And you can see our R2, which is the 618 pivot, is going to be R2 minus the pivot. So I will pull up my calculator and attempt again to not mistype anything. And it's right here, as you can see. Oh my gosh, I hate that disappears. I'm doing it on my phone, guys. Sorry. All right, so it's R2 minus pivot. So your R2 was, sorry, we're doing the support one first here. So it's the S2 minus pivot. So your support 2 is 654.21. And then you subtract the pivot, which is, yesterday's pivot was 662.91. And then you add a bracket. .618 times high. Yesterday's high was 667.34. And then sorry, it disappeared back there. Plus, and then add another bracket, and then add your high minus your low. So it's your high is 667.34 minus your low, which was 658.75. Double bracket equals if anyone could give me that answer in the next 1 minute, I'm going to give you an Amazon gift card too. I don't want to tell you guys. I want to see if you guys are doing it. Either the support or the resistance 618 pivot. Your choice. Tell me which one it is. Just double checking mine. Okay, let me see what you got here. The 618 is just 618. So your support pivot, which if we put a fibs on there, support 2, all right, right here to the pivot. All right, that's kind of, it should be right around 657 should be the end, but it's right here. Now let me blow it up. There you go. So right here, this is the one we're doing right here. And then, here, let me close that. There we go. So you guys could see everything. So it's here, you know what, I will pull the calculator up so you guys can follow along to do this. So, what it's right here, it's pivot. Pivot, which our pivot for yesterday was 662.91. Minus, and then bracket 1 right here, 0.618 times a secondary bracket, high minus low, yesterday's high minus low. Oh my God, I can't do the calculator here, guys, because every time I click on the, look at all these calculators back here. It's crazy. I'm going to slide it over here. Sorry. I despise the calculator. So yesterday's high and lows. So it's 667.34 because we got minus bracket 618, 667.34. And then, what's our low? 658.75. So 668.34 minus. This is probably so fun to so many of you, huh? 658.75. And then close that bracket. And then close the full bracket. 657.60. That's what I've got. So that's that 618. Let me expand this out. 657.60. And see right here. 657.83. It's within 20 cents, but it's basically going to be that. It's not going to be perfect because the 618 doesn't divide perfectly. But it's that is your 618, and then the 618 resistance is going to be opposite from your R2 down to your pivot point, and it's going to be the 668.17. So the 618s matter in the resistance to the pivot and then the support to the pivot. You can add lines on that too. It gets complex, guys. And if this feels complex, you ain't seen nothing yet because standard deviations is 100 times more than this. I'm just going to be super real with you guys. So I know it's like, oh my God, who cares, Amy? Why are you teaching me all this math? This is so stupid. I could put in this right here because if you want to get to the, the grand poobah of the best ways of trading with standard deviations, you got to understand the math of the market, and this is part of that. Yeah, and the 382 as well. Because I don't trade with the 382, I kind of skip that one, but there is a 382. But really, you don't even really need the 382 because what's the 382? It's the opposite part of the 618. It's if you draw it the opposite way. 382 plus 618 is 100. 6180 plus 3820 is 100. That's in case you guys never put that together. And then, the 0.25, if we have an original fibs on, like understanding how fibs works. Let me put this on a default. There we go. So on a fibs in general, I don't know if anyone's ever connected the dots on this. Your 0.236 and your 0.786, you add those together, and then your 618 and your 382, you add those together, and then you double these, and then you add a 0 with a 1, and all those are formulas of 100. So anyway, I'm trying to think. I don't want to get too much into crazy town stuff here because it is a lot. I just wanted to teach how to get the fibs and show you where they are. What the hell? Delete. Oh, I'm drawing app. That's why. And just kind of go over it some. I know it probably feels heavy as hell and redundant, especially when I was having a freaking brain fart with why my formula wasn't working out. It's good to know the math behind it, though, guys. It's good to know the math behind it. It's good to know the monthly fibs. It's good to know the the monthly pivot, the weekly pivot. But these really are the ones which you can just pull up on your chart. Your resistance 1 and 2, your support 1 and 2 with the prices, but your pivot, the grand all is the pivot, because that's really your point of bull bear. Like today's pivot, okay, if we put on the chart for today, because these are yesterday's pivots. So if we backtrack this, okay, so yesterday's pivots are on here, as you can see right here. This was yesterday's pivot, and this was defined at market. As soon as the market closed, you could do the pivots for the next day. All right. And as you could see, all the way up here, we had a break above. We were way above support 2 as the market opened. We were way up here. But one thing I want you to take note of, these levels were already hammered out, guys. Look where we bounced. Look where we hit resistance. This is on a 15-minute. We could put it even shorter here, and we can see on the 5-minute, we hit resistance there, and we bounced off. And then we tried to bounce again at the support 1, and we couldn't, and we came down almost to the support 2. Like, the levels matter. Look at where we chopped. Look at where we tried to hold. Even if we put it on like a 1-minute. Look where we tried to hold. Right at this support here, we came up. And then look where else we tried to hold. Resistance 1. Look where we chopped. And then we lost pivot. We tried to hold pivot. Then we come right down to pivot, bounce, lose it, come down to the next support, bounce, rejection right at the pivot point, and then come down, and we tried to hold this support. Like, the levels show every level is exactly where we ended up having some sort of chop or trying to pick up support, which is substantial. It's substantial. And then, like if you're doing fibs with pivots versus the actual chart, remember we would do S2 to the pivot point. Our 618 right here, which would already be predetermined, which is also S1 pretty much, and on the flip side. So the support 1 and resistance 1 are incredibly important. But, if you just look back and cross-reference this, you could see these areas are literally right where we bounced. I wish I had previous days on here because you could probably see it. Let's see if we have previous day pivots. Nah, I'm not going to get into all that, but you can cross-reference it, guys. But just today, and I know Blaze had mentioned a few times, like we were bouncing at the resistance 1, and we bounced right off support 1, and that was kind of also, a support here, but it's a high volume area. It's just another layer of like okay, yeah, this makes sense because we cleared out liquidity from the low 2 days ago, and it's the pivot support. Like, hell yeah, let's take some calls. And then, oh shit, we've got, not only do we have the weekly point of control, all right, because we didn't have too much volume here. That weekly point of control probably existed before yesterday. If we put it on, let's just measure the rest of the week without that real quick, because I would like to know if it created that because of that. So fixed range volume profile, let's do the week, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, without today. And see, it's the same point of control. So we essentially hit that point of control because the point of control did not change today. It's almost to a penny what it was Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, not including today. So let me delete that. It's just a double, like it's a double, connection, confirmation here of where we hit our resistance, right at the pivot point and that point of control. So it's just an extra layer of protection. It's stacking another probability, guys. Add previous day pivots to, yes. Like, make it optional. Let's make that part optional where we could go back, like, say, 5 days or 10 days optional. Not that it's on there because we don't want it to be too many lines. We want it to be able to be optional, like almost like if we did a selection of 1 day, 2 day, 3 day. Yeah, exactly. Checkbox. Yep. Number. Exactly. We'll talk about it. And we could build out something pretty nice because it's really lacking. The pivot point indicators out there are kind of trash. So we could probably build something nice and get your name out there. I'll post everywhere with link up to you. Maybe people want to pay you to build some indicators for them. Like, seriously, I'll help you do that too. But yeah, like, so we would want, previous days, but be able to choose that. And then like a uncheck for weekly and monthly too, I would say. So like a check and an uncheck for a weekly pivot, monthly pivot, and then you can scale back like say 5 days or so, and go back and test them to see those levels. That's what I think. And then we don't need past S2 and S1, just the 2 supports, 2 resistance, and the pivot. So I am going to daily put these levels up. I'll just copy them off here and put them up for you guys. Or you can use this indicator that really sucks until we have a good one. And I don't know. I know that was probably heavy and boring as shit, a lot of it, especially because the math part was fucking me up to having to use a calculator on the computer. I don't know how anyone uses the calculator on the computer like that. I'm a 9-key adding machine girl, so it was making me absolutely crazy. Does anyone have any questions before I hop on off here? Holy shit, Aunt Steve, I thought I already have given you a gift card before. I purposely didn't pick you. Like 3 times because I'm like, oh, I got to pick someone new. That was the first time. Oh my goodness, I'm so sorry. I swear to God, I thought I already gave you one. That's crazy. I'm sorry that I like fumbled there in the middle. My husband got out of the shower. The dogs lost their mind, and I'm trying to add on a freaking calculator on my computer. It was making me crazy. Pivot point indicate, but the pivot, yeah, like I don't trust any Webull settings. I mean, yeah, we can kind of scroll through here a little bit. Let me stop the video, and then we could scroll through a little bit. Let me stop that.